So this is the Realme Book, and this thing was leaked heavily, and the big consensus around those leaks was that it looked a lot like the MacBook. In fact, even the name is taking inspiration from the MacBook. Now this is predominantly being sold in India. It does have a price tag of 49,000 rupees, at least the model I have here. Using my big brain rupee converter, that's about 650 to 700 US dollars. When you consider the type of specs you're getting with this device, it is very attractive, like very attractive for its price point. Now I have the real gray model. This is using an Intel i5 CPU. There's no i7 model available for this, which is fine. I think most people using an Ultrabook like this will be totally fine with an i5. You have Intel's Iris Xe graphics. It's about 1.48 kilograms, which is about 3.2 pounds. You have a 14-inch 3x2 display and a 512 gigabyte NVMe SSD. Now inside the box, we have the laptop. Inside the first little pocket, we have some instructions. On the right side, we have a 65 watt charging brick. Pretty small, not too big. And then on the left-hand side, we have a USB Type-C cable. Now, since a lot of tech publications are calling the Realme Book a MacBook clone, let's compare the differences. Right off the bat, the size and form factor is a bit different. As you can see, the Realme Book is bigger. It has that taller aspect ratio, so it makes the laptop deeper and slightly wider. It has about the same amount of lid flex, so they both do a good job there. The logos are in a different spot, and they both share aluminum chassis, which is very common these days. The big difference though is the port lineup. With the Realme Book, on the right-hand side, you get a full-size USB port, which is something that's not present on the MacBook. The rest of the ports are kind of similar. You get the audio jack, and then when you flip it over, you get one USB Type-C Thunderbolt 4 port, and then another USB-C port. Now, if you try to open up the MacBook with one hand, it does it with flying colors. If you do it with the Realme Book, it lifts up with it. You have to hold the base down in order to get the screen open. Right off the bat, I can tell that the display on the Realme Book is significantly more wobbly. Like when you open it up, you notice it wobbles. Is it bad? No, it's not crazy bad. I've reviewed tons of laptops where the wobbliness or the wobbliness, whatever you want to call it, is awful. It's noticeable, but it's not going to bother you. MacBook is just like solid. You open it up, snaps into place. Keyboard layout is very similar. The big difference though is that the Realme Book is not using a touch bar, no Windows PC is, whereas the MacBook Pro 13 does. The spacing and the keyboard layout looks to be a bit bigger on the Realme Book, but like even the font is very similar to what the MacBook is doing. The only difference is the arrow keys. They're a bit thicker and fatter on the Realme Book. And of course you have a power button over here, which also acts as a fingerprint scanner. Now, right off the bat, based on typing on the Realme Book feels a bit, I don't know, cheaper, right? As it should. It's a cheaper laptop. It doesn't have the same typing experience as the MacBook. I find the MacBook to be more comfortable to type on. There is a bit more keyboard flex on the Realme Book. It doesn't have the same rigidity as the MacBook Pro. The touchpads are both massive, but right off the bat, I can tell that the touchpad on the Realme Book is made out of plastic. The display on the Realme Book is very nice. It's 3x2, it's 14 inches, it's QHD, it has good color accuracy, and it gets to about 400 nits of brightness. It does go almost all the way back to the top of the table, whereas the MacBook display kind of tops out right here. Now, I always found the MacBook Pro display to be a bit glossy, but I was surprised to see how much more glossy the Realme screen is. Like if you look at these different angles it's producing compared to the MacBook, it's quite more significant, so that's something else to keep in mind. There is a 720p webcam on the top, but it doesn't support Windows Hello. It's just there if you need to use it for video conferencing. The bezel sizes are skinnier than the MacBook, so it has a more attractive display to look at. But the one thing I noticed when I was setting it up was this power button. I know I told you guys it also acts as a fingerprint scanner, but it feels super cheap. And I understand this is a cheaper laptop, but even at one point when I pushed it, it kind of got stuck underneath the top deck for a second. I got a little scared. Thankfully, everything's okay, but it feels a bit too loose. Thankfully, there's no stickers on the deck of the keyboard. I don't know how Realme did it, but they negotiated and got the stickers placed on the bottom of the laptop instead, so you don't see it. Now, you do have two speakers on the bottom, and we're gonna do a little sound test compared to the MacBook Pro. No surprise there, the MacBook Pro has better speakers, there's more of them, and they're upward firing, so they get louder and they have more depth to them. One cool thing you can do with the Realme Book is if you have a Realme GT Edition smartphone, you can use a feature called PC Connect. Think of your phone for Windows, but Realme's own version, and what it lets you do is transfer files between your phone and your PC. It just gives you more access between the two devices so that you can seamlessly transfer stuff over to each other. Now the laptop's performance will come out in my full review, but I will say that this is an i5 processor. It's 4 cores, it's 11th gen, so basic productivity, working in Excel, browsing the net, doing a little bit of development is gonna be fine on this thing. If you're looking for like the fastest Ultrabook, you're probably better off with an AMD processor since it has more cores to compile certain types of codes. But for everyday use, this processor should be more than capable. Now internally, not much is upgradable. You can swap out the Wi-Fi card and you can do the same thing with the NVMe SSD. RAM is completely soldered onto the motherboard. So whatever unit you get, make sure you're comfortable with the amount of RAM you're choosing. Battery is 54 watt hours. They're saying about 11 hours of battery life. My gut feeling is probably 7 to 8, but I gotta test that out. Happy to see 2 big heat pipes with 2 fans to keep this laptop cool. So yeah, that's my unboxing and first impressions of the Realme Book. It's not a MacBook. It doesn't have the same build quality of a MacBook, but the price is really good for the type of specs and experience you get. You know, you can definitely feel where the corners are cut when you pick this up and you compare it to what Apple is offering, but I feel like the price tag is super good. Now, I don't know if I'm gonna review this. If you really want to, beg me. Beg me. No, I'm kidding, don't beg me. Just let me know in the comment section down below and make sure to drop any questions about this laptop and I'll try to go through them and answer them in my full review. Like the video if you liked it, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys in the next one.